Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to our Monday program, The Debate. And today we will be handling another topic, this time on education. But before I introduce the topic of the day for you, I will wish that you join me to observe a minute of silence for the demise of Cardinal Christian Tumi, who just passed away. Thank you very much. Today, with me in the studio is Professor Ruben, who will be talking to us on the topic on education, skills acquisition, and inclusive growth in Africa. Remember, we are tackling Aspiration 1 of the Agenda 2063, and we know that education is said to be the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, morals, beliefs, and habits sometimes. And all this can be formal or informal. But we will notice today that our education seems to be orienting our children towards remembering and not thinking. And today, Professor is going to drill us how education, skill acquisition can lead to sustainable development, to sustainable growth, and equally make lives very worth living. Professor, you're welcome again to our platform. On our platform, this is the Some Point Global TV, which comes on every Monday with the program The Debate. And I want to say that you've been a regular feature on this program, and we are so happy to always have you when we meet you on our platform. Professor, you're welcome. This is your platform. This is your space.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and it's good to meet again. And thank everybody, the listeners. As the moderator has said, we are looking at education, skill acquisitions, and inclusive growth in Africa. This topic is very important because it's related to the Agenda 2063 directly. Actually, it's part of the Aspiration 1. If you remember, the Aspiration 1 is to build a prosperous Africa, and this is based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. We still have to remember that we aspire, according to that aspiration, to have African people that have a high standard of living and quality of life, sound health, and well being. Then we aspire for well educated and skilled citizens. This is underscored by science, technology, innovation for a knowledge based society. And the aim is to make sure that no children is left out of school due to poverty or any form of discrimination. We aspire for economics that are structurally transformed to create shared growth, decent job, and economic opportunity. Now, this implies that for us to have a prosperous Africa, we want our people must have a good quality of life. And before they can have good quality of life, this is anchored on good educations of the citizen. And all this suggests that Africa must operate a good educational system that will enable our citizens participate in economic system that guarantees gainful employment. And that's why education comes in. That's where skill acquisition comes in. So let's start by looking at what is inclusive growth. Because that's what the Aspiration 1 says. We want to build a prosperous Africa with a sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Now, when we talk about inclusive growth, we are saying that that growth is sustainable and is embedded in a quick decline in poverty and inequality through labor force participation as well as benefiting from economic growth process. Inclusive growth guarantees the income expansion of lower income group at the fast pace while no social groups are left behind in the growth process. Well, what we have most of the time when the economy is growing is what they call polarization. You discover that the richer people are getting rich and the poorer people are getting poor. That's polarization. People are moving towards extreme poles. So, by inclusive growth, we make sure that the lower income benefit from the economic gain. In inclusive growth, we make sure that no group, no social group is left behind. And so one of the major drivers of inclusiveness is accumulations of skill and knowledge through education. Before you can actively participate in economic activity, you must have some level of skills, you must have some level of knowledge, and these are acquired through education. And so that is why our topic tonight is very, very relevant: education, skill acquisitions, and inclusive growth. And I want us to say that to let us know that there are two causality, there are two ways. For you to benefit in the economic system, you need some level of accumulations of skills, you need some knowledge through educations. And then when you are participating in the economy, when the economic growth economic is growing, it employ more people to participate in the economic system. And the gains of this economic system can be transmitted to economic infrastructures, where you build schools, you build educational facilities for children to participate. And so there are two ways. When we grow the economy inclusively, it generates employment for people. When people are given employed, they'll be able to have money to send their children to school. The government will have money to build more facilities for our citizens. So I want to say that developed country that we have today, they are developed because they develop their human capitals through education, through health facilities. They build their growth on women capacity enhancement, especially through the provision of quality education to their citizens. So everybody is running to develop country today because the countries are developed. And what develop the country are the developed people. I told people there is no developed country, it's only the developed people. So if we are able to develop our own people to our own country, we developed. We develop. So their growth provided many economic opportunity and increased prosperity accruing to the citizens, citizen of that country. So this developed country, you discover that, as I've said, they develop their human capacity, and the human capacity now develop the country, and their own economic growth ensure that there's economic opportunity and prosperity for the majority of the people. They are sure, they make sure that no social groups are discriminated against, no social groups are left behind, and that's why you have their economic growth very inclusive. And one of the ways they do that is to develop the human capacity of their citizens, and that is the way for us to go to in Africa. I want to talk on the importance of this human capital for economic growth. It cannot be overemphasized. Human capital is essential to create and sustain inclusive economic growth in Africa, anywhere in the world. Human capital is very essential, and that's why you see the developed country, they emphasize that, they prioritize that, they spend money on that to make sure that they have good human capital to develop their economy. So investment in education can lead to learning and enhance human capacity that can crystallize into a workforce with adequate skill. So when we spend money on education, that through that we give learning to our people, we give knowledge to our people, we give development to the people, and that will crystallize into a workforce with adequate skills, adequate knowledge, adequate human capital to be able to participate actively in economic activities. Researchers have revealed that what matters to growth is not education attainment per se, but rather development of valuable skills. And we need to emphasize that, because sometimes we just emphasize the fact that, okay, let's increase our school enrollment, let's make sure that all the children go to school. That's a very good starting point, but it's not a sufficient condition for us to have human capital development. We have to make sure that our education system facilitates skill acquisition, knowledge acquisition, for them to actively participate in economic growth and development. The survey by the World Bank revealed that skill as a constraint for business in Africa. About 50 to 70% of the firms in Africa reported that skill as is a major constraint to the employment of the people in their firms, and that is very important. So there is a skill gap, and this skill gap we have in Africa will continue to increase as the countries are increasing more. as the economy is developing. If care is not taken to take care of these skill gaps, we are going to have more gaps as the countries, as Africa is making progress, as economic is growing. More people may be left behind if you don't fill that skill gap, if you don't increase the human capacity of our people, if you don't increase the education skill acquisition of our people, the skill gap will continue, and that will leave many of our people behind. I just quickly look at economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa from 2000 to 2019, and it's very disappointing to notice that the economic growth is going down. Even if you look at the GDP, you see the GDP going down. GDP per capita was even negative in 2016. You can see that. So, um, not only that our economic is not inclusive, there's a decline in the growth. There's a decline in the growth. We are not growing as we're supposed to grow. And there are many reasons for that, which we need to take note of. I will talk about that later. Then they look at labor participation in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2000, about 70%, about 71%, that declined to about 68% in 2019. Just an indication that unemployment is increasing, and it's a reflection of the fact that our economy is not growing. When the economy is not growing, there is no way labor participation will increase. So meaning that there is more unemployment problem in Africa as we from 2000 and 2019. Now, what is the reason for the what are the reasons for this poor economic performance? Because as I've said, there is a skill gap. Many of our people lack the required skill to participate in economic activities. The sub-Saharan Africa growing working age population can constitute a major opportunity to reduce poverty and increase shared prosperity. But the problem is that African workforce is the least skilled in the world, and that is constraining economic prospect, economic growth, economic prosperity, economic development. And for example, in Nigeria and South Africa, in the next 10 years, 40% of today's job may be lost, may be significantly transformed or replaced altogether by digital technology over the next 2 or 3 decades. Now, if those jobs are replaced by digital technologies and our people are not skilled towards those technological knowledge, our people are not skilled towards those ICT, they will become unemployed, 40% of them. So the unemployment rate we are complaining now may even increase in the next 10 to 20 years if we don't increase the skill capacity of our people, if we don't increase their knowledge base, if we don't increase their skill development. So the smart skill development strategy requires that we figure out which skills are needed, for what, who need them, and how they can be developed at the right time and in the right way. And that's where we have a skill gap. It's not only to be building more universities, it's not only to be sending children to school, it's not only to ensure that our enrollment goes up. The most important thing is that where do we need the skills? For what purpose? Which company need them? And then how do we develop our educational curriculum to fit into that? That's what they did in Germany about 2 years ago. You can see where there is need for the Germany now, they need about, as at that time they need about 2 million people to be employed, and they will tell you that this is the area where they needed people in ICT. This is where they needed people, and so there should be something like that in Africa where we have that kind of skill development strategies. We'll be able to figure out which are the skills required. It's not only to be teaching, to be sending children to school. This is the skill that is needed. Then go and study this. Some of the country in primary commodity extraction. So we need people in the petroleum sectors. We need people in the extraction industry. So our people have to be trained along that line. Not that we are still relying on experts to do some of these things for us in even our extractive industries. And so there should be that development strategies that will require figuring out which skills are needed, for what, who need them, and how we can develop them at the right time and in the right way and in the right schools and in the right educational opportunity. I show this to let us know that there's a kind of mismatch between our education system and employment sector. You discover that in tertiary institution, for example, in Nigeria, 24% of people that attended tertiary institutions were not employed. 24%. Why? It's because they went to school, but they don't have the required skill that the market demand. They don't have the skill that will make them to be employable. They went to university, they went to polytechnic, they went to colleges of education, but what they went to studies are not in demand. So therefore they are not employed. So there's that skill gap, and there's that gap between the institutions and the market. There's no link, and that's what developed country, that's what they do. They make sure that there's a collaboration between the employment market and then the institutions. In my institutions in Germany here, even my institute, we have people from companies. Some of them have offices in the same university with us. Then we can interact. Then you know what the market demand, who are the set of students you have to produce. Not just to say people are going to schools, they are going to university, and then they went to university. After they come back, they are unemployed. It is not that's not the normal norm now. That's not what is globally, it's not globally acceptable. It's not the best practice. Now the good news is that the average return to year schooling in Africa is the highest. Meaning that if people go to invest, go to school in Africa, their return to their year of schooling is very high, higher than the average global average. This is still telling us that education is the way for Africa. If we really want to develop our people, we need to develop their education capacity. Now, for example, the average marginal returns are highest for tertiary institution. The meaning of that is that if an individual complete an additional year of tertiary education, he will enjoy 21% higher earning than a person who only receives secondary school education. Meaning that there is that return. The returns at tertiary institution is very high than otherwise. But we should not forget that it's not just only to attend tertiary institutions. We have to make sure that they have the required skill. We have to make sure that they get the knowledge that is demanded in the market. And so then they will be able to fit in into the system, because this one is related to people that are employed. Before they can estimate your marginal return, it means that you're already employed. So for those that are employed, increase in the level of education will increase their earning by 21%. But if they are not employed, there's nothing to even estimate. And so we have to make sure that we do our training, we develop our curriculum along the line of the demand, employment, labor demand in the economy. Then we'll be able to tailor the curriculum along what is needed in the market. Now I look at the fact that, does it mean that we are not spending more on education in Africa? Now my study shows that no, that's not the case. Africa is we our education expenditure is very high, relatively high, even higher than some other regions. For example, on the average, we spend about 20% of our total expenditure on education, and to me, that's very high enough. When you compare the fact that we spend only 4% of our education, of our total expenditure on agriculture, then here now we spend about 20% on education. Even the education education expenditure as a ratio of GDP is still very high, almost 5%. So uh, spending is not really expenditure is not really our major problem. Our major problem is the efficiency of the spending. What do we spend the money for? I think that the quality of the spending is very important. We will look at that. Relatively, when it is look at the absolute expenditure, I think we are not too far behind, and that's very positive. Now, I look at the children out of school. Now you discover there is a decline. We are taking many of our children out of school. That's another positive thing. And the reason is because we emphasize enrollment, that people have to go to school, take children out of school, and all that. That's very positive. So, but at the same time, we still have problem. Despite that, we still have about 31 million children age that are still out of school. Or the graph is going down, but with that, we still have almost about 31 million children that are out of school. In Nigeria, we have about almost 10 million children out of school. Now, only about 55% of children complete primary education. So those people that were there were even in the educational sectors, those people that went to primary school, is only 55% of them that completed. And those that went to secondary school, is only about 30% of them that completed. So by 2014, 4 out of 10 youths in the regions were enrolled in upper secondary school, and only 15% of them completed it. We get them to school, but majority of them did not complete the educational system. They didn't complete their study. So it's not only, as I've said, not only just we are ensuring the enrollment, but we have to make sure that why I see that people they did not complete their education, what is the quality of the education they are receiving is very, very important. So the overall completion rate of primary school is much lower than any other in the region. So the literacy rate is still about 50%, meaning that almost half of our populations are not literate, they are not numerate. So we still have problems. But that is not to underestimate the fact that there are some countries that are doing very well, like Ghana and South Africa. They have an educational structure today that is beginning to resemble that of East Asian countries. But in countries like Mali and in Niger, around 70% of the young adults, they have no formal education. So by the time you now aggregate all that, uh, it reflects the fact that we are not doing well. But we should emphasize that there are some countries that are doing well, and those countries that are doing well, as I've been saying, we have to copy them. What are they doing well? How are they doing well? How can we do it well? Like Mali and Niger, they can copy from Ghana, they can copy from South Africa to take many of their young adults out of the street and send them to school. And now there are other challenges in education sectors in sub-Saharan Africa. Number one, there is a lack of effective teaching in many of these African countries. As I'm still emphasizing the fact that it's not only that we say they should go to school, we have to make sure that the effective teaching is going on, learning is going on, skill acquisition is going on. The data for sector development indicators reveal that uh, many of these teachers are not even prepared. Many of them, they don't even go to school, they don't show up. For example, there was a STDI, a sector development indicator for education, that was conducted in Uganda. They discovered that 40% of the primary school teacher, they did not come to the class to teach. So this is done. What they do was that they just go to school. Those that are the researchers just went to school and unannounced. They discovered that okay, this teacher is supposed to be in the class. He was not there. She was not there. About 40% of the primary school classroom. Now, only 19% of these public teachers show mastery of the curriculum they are taught, they are teaching. So the teachers are not, we have talk about the student, we talk about the teachers themselves. The quality of the teacher is very low, and that's why the quality of teaching is very low. The quality of teacher is very low, that's why the quality of learning is very low. The quality of teacher is very low, the teachers are not committed, and that is why the skill acquisition is very low. And we can see the effect on our economic development. That's why you see the economic growth going down, and you see that labor participation too is going down. Now, teachers in sub-Saharan Africa, they teach in a challenging environment. We talk about their absenteeism, we talk about their non-commitment, but we still have to look at the fact that they are teaching in a challenging environment. Some of them work from far from their home and receive little instructional and pedagogical support. There is no further training for them. There is no encouragement. Salaries are often delayed and lower than salary of for compared with other comparable sectors. And so they are not motivated. And in that systems, these teachers are not held accountable for poor performance, nor rewarded for good performance, including recognitions and opportunity to mentor others. So the reward system is very bad. It's very poor. They are not rewarded, they are not penalized for not being committed, and they are not rewarded for good performance. I think that's instead of just blaming the teachers, we have to look at those challenging environments. Teachers, their salaries are not paid. How do you expect them to go to the class? Because somebody will wonder, How come 40% of the teachers are not in the class? So how would they go to the class if their salaries are delayed, if their salaries are not paid, if they are paid, the other their colleagues, our friends are paid better in those in other professions. So they will not be committed. Before we begin to blame them, we have to blame the environment, we have to blame the government, we have to blame the operation system at which they are operating. So the reward system is very poor. Now, I think we need to concentrate on the way forward. What is the way forward for us? As I've said, about 20% of Africa's total expenditure is spent on education. About 5% of the GDP is spent on education. So what we need to now emphasize is the efficiency of the spending. We have to make sure that we improve the targeting of resources to foundational skills and family in greater need. We have to establish a very strong accountability mechanism. Are we sure that this money is getting to the targeted sectors? Are we sure that this money is getting to the targeted people? Because how can we be spending 20% of our total expenditure on education and the performance level is still like this? So we have to make sure that there are no leakages in the system. We have to make sure that there are no financial, you know, leakages. We have to make sure there is no financial waste. So that financial mechanism and management, we have to be sure that things are done about it. Then effective interventions should be scaled up to enable and compel teachers to spend their time teaching. So we have to make sure that we scale up the effective intervention system. We need to scale them up. Those systems that are effective interventions that are very useful and they are working in other countries in Africa, we need to scale them up. So Africa needs to reallocate public education expenditure to prioritize the disadvantaged people, disadvantaged area, the disadvantaged unit. It's also demand intervention such as a good chance, an adult literacy program to support those who miss out on critical foundation skills building. And this is very important. Some of them now, we say they are majority of them are out of school. Can't we do something to them? Some of them are already adults. To say they should go to primary school now may be difficult. Why can't we give them second chance by adult literacy program, adult support system, adult acquisition system, so that these people can participate in the economic activity instead of just counting them that they are out of school. So there should be a second chance for them. We need to design our education policy that will offer opportunity for easy access to education by teaming population, and that is where free education is important. That's where tuition-free education is very important. But we need to balance this access with infrastructural development, because it has been shown that in some countries, even in Ghana, where there is a free education system and this does not go simultaneously with infrastructural development, you see these children, they come to school, they are sitting on the floor. You see these children coming to school, they are sitting under the tree. So the two have to go simultaneously. Increase access, increase in the quality of the infrastructure. We need to ensure that regular and high quality training of teachers and educators. So this will raise up the standard of their professions. This will motivate them. We need to encourage them. There should be a good reward system. The best teacher of the year should be rewarded. Those that are doing well should be rewarded. Those that are not doing well should be penalized. There is need for upgrading of school infrastructure to promote quality of education. As I've said, it's not just solely to bring the children to school. We have to make sure that the infrastructures are there to support them. So the policy reforms need to provide wide access to opportunity for skill acquisition, equitable access. No social group is left behind. No people are left behind because of where they are living, not because they are from rural areas, so there is no access to them. Learning that builds skills to meet labor market demand. I've emphasized that the learning must be relevant in quality, must be relevant to the market demand, must be relevant to labor demand, must be sure to make sure that they are able to participate in economic activities. Now, in conclusion, we can recommend that uh, there can be public-private partnership. This will bring resources to address the infrastructure and service need in education. Nigeria did something like that. They call it TED Fund. tertiary education fund. So what they did was that they now ask the company, private sectors, to contribute certain percentage of their profit every year for educational funding. And since they started, they were able to build, they used the money to build most of good infrastructures in Nigeria, especially in university and tertiary institutions now in Nigeria. You see, when you go to their tertiary institution, they will tell you that this is from test fund. So what the government did is that, okay, government will contribute certain amount of money, then the companies industry will bring certain percentage of their profit as educational tax, and that has really helped. So another thing I want to say is that we should not only emphasize technology. We have in my state in Nigeria where they just bought tablet for the children, and the teachers are not, their salaries are not paid. So they just gave the tablet to those children. I don't know what is the outcome of that policy now. So, but there's nothing to write home about it. So we need to complement the technology, ICT, with the teachers rather than replace them. Tablet cannot cannot even in any country, in whether develop or not develop, you don't completely replace teachers with technology. So technology should complement teachers rather than we replace them. We have to improve the entry standard of teaching profession. It's not because somebody does not have a job, so we now say, okay, go and teach. You have to be a teacher because you don't have job. No, we must bring people that are really persuaded about teaching, people that have the required knowledge to be a teacher, and that will improve our teaching and learning outcome. Now, committed leaders and well-coordinated policies and programs are essential for providing education and skill acquisition in Nigeria, I mean in Africa. So our leaders have to be committed to it, that they have to make sure that the policy are coordinated, the programs are coordinated, things are done simultaneously, not only to bring the children to school, but to increase the quality of the teaching, to provide facility to them. I still see that there is a need to update our curriculum in schools to match the recent economic reality. And so we need to do that. Most of these curriculums have been there for years, centuries. Nobody bother about them. Is this what this curriculum is it still needed now? Is it suitable for economic reality? Can this one get our children job after they graduate? They have graduated. Finally, there is need to strengthen monitoring and inspectory department in the Ministry of Education to ensure that staffs and teachers do their job. And when we were young, when I was in primary school, there's what they call local education inspector. They go around the school. They will not tell them when they are coming. They will just appear in the school. So people, the teacher fear them. The headmaster was afraid of them because they can come at any time. But now there's nothing like that again. So that's why you have 40% of teachers not doing their job. So we need to strengthen that inspectory department, the monitoring department, to make sure that the staffs and teachers do their job. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that elaborate submission on education, of course, a topic that is familiar. And I know many people must be already asking so many questions on what is happening about the educational system. Like I said, many of our children are oriented towards remembering and not thinking. And I'm sure you've answered many of the questions that are in my mind or that were in my mind and equally in the minds of many who are listening to us. I want to say thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I think when I listened to you properly, you said no developed country, that there are no developed countries, but that we have developed people. And this can be acquired through education. And that no social groups should be discriminated. Usually, in those countries which are said to be developed, they do not discriminate against social groups. And that human capital is essential to create and sustain inclusive economic growth. And I took note of this one. You said, what matters is not the educational attainment per se, but rather the development of valuable skills. We'll be coming back to this. And you said the skill gaps will continue to increase more in the coming decades. And one of the reasons that I took peculiarly or particularly that you talked about a reason for poor economic performance. You talked of lack of required skills to harness economic opportunities. And I think we will actually deal with this properly because in most African countries, we do general education, like we call it, do hundreds, tens of topic subjects, And at the end of the day, you don't actually know which one you are actually specialized in. And we are talking today about education, skill acquisition for inclusive growth in Africa. And you see that the smart skill development strategy requires figuring out which skills are needed for what, who needs them, and how they can be developed at the right time and in the right way. But we see complain about so many children, about 3 million of them of primary age, who are out of school. And today, like I said, we are tackling education, skill acquisition, and inclusive growth. And I will go with this very first question. We used to hear they say that education is the key to success. Can we still say this today?
Okay. Um, Education is still the key to success because, as I have said,
Education. Okay.
Mr. Moderator, so I got your questions. Thank you very much. I think that is a very important question that education is the key to success. Some people in Africa begin to doubt that. And the background to that is because they see some musicians, they see some people that didn't go to school and they are making more money. So they felt that, so what is the point going to school when somebody that did not have much education is doing well otherwise? But when we are talking about development, we are talking about sustainable development. If you look at those, some of those people they are pointing out, today they may have money. Some of them they ended up in abject poverty because whatever they have is not sustainable. If actually we want to have a sustainable income, sustainable growth, sustainable development, we have to think about education because it will help you to participate in the economic gain. It will help you to participate in economic prosperity. It gives you employment anywhere in the world. Let's say you are an ICT person, you can go anywhere in the world and participate in the economic activities. And so, but if you don't have that education, you discover that you will not be given chance, and you will not be able to make what you will not be able to share from the economic prosperity of that place. You will not be able to get a job. You will not be able to do what you are supposed to do. So that and as I've said, you see that developed country they emphasize that they make sure. In fact, in Germany, it is a crime for you not to send your children to school. You now begin to ask why. Because they know that for that child to be useful to the economy, to be useful to the country, to be useful to himself or herself, he must be well educated. And so we should not have that notion that maybe education is not important again. It's very, very important. It's very, very relevant. Not only that, it has even been discovered that um, when you are educated, whatever you are doing, you do it in a better way. If you are frying akara, if you are selling even in the market, and the way educated person will organize his own market or our own market is different from the way somebody that's not educated will organize his own market. So education is not only uh, just for you to get employment. Even your own employment, there's a way you do it better. You have a broader knowledge. You can interact with many people. You can organize things in a better way. You can account for your money in a more appropriate way. You know who to contact. You have a kind of network. So education increases your knowledge base, even to do your own work, whatever you are doing, to do it very well. So we still have to emphasize that education is a key to success, just like knowledge is power.
Thank you very much. I wanted you to affirm that because sometimes it's difficult to really talk to our younger
Yeah,
ones to tell them that
yeah,
education is actually the
yeah,
key because they quote you examples of people around, of persons around in life, but never saw the four walls of a
yeah,
classroom. Thank you so much, Prof.
yeah,
And I am coming queuing again with that same question. And here we talk
yeah,
about the high rates of youth and unemployment that have become a structural problem in many African countries, with most of our women and the girl child being left behind. be realized. And the question I want to ask you, Prof, is that how the government facilitate the transition with some technical issues there. My question, Prof, that how
Now, how do we transit from education, from knowledge, and to gainful employment, to prosperity, and otherwise? Now, um, I have said that we just have to be smart about this thing. It's not only in Africa, it's everywhere. You have to make sure that the knowledge we accumulate through education, through skill acquisition, is relevant to the market. And that's what they did even in Germany here. So what they did was, as I told you about 2 years ago, they just tell you, they did an analysis and they know where the economy needed people. For example, now ICT. And so, and people now will now align. The youth will have to align. I have some friends. So when we saw that data, that this is the area where they needed people, for example, ICT. So some of my friends now, what they now did was that they went to do retraining. I have a friend that had PhD in another discipline. Now he now went to do training on ICT. And immediately after that training, he got job. I have another one from Ghana that got job. I have another one from another country because they did what is relevant to the demand of the economy. We cannot emphasize that. We have to be relevant to the market. We need to study market. We have not done that in Africa. We have to sit down. If, for example, Nigeria now, we have petroleum industry. Now, we now have to look what are the knowledge, skill that we need to extract our oil, to process our oil, because that's another area. To make sure that we process our oil on our own instead of taking that oil to another country to process for us and bring it back. And it's because we don't have the required skill, because our people are not equipped to do that. That's why we have to, the money you even use to transport that oil, crude oil, to another country to process for you is enough to to transform the economy completely. So the Africa we have to see that where do we need the skill, what how can our people get that skill. We can even bring experts to come and train our people to do that. After when the experts, by the time the experts return, then our people can take over. So there is no way we will not get employment through that. But when we need the ICT and our people went to read history, we need ICT, they went to read another thing. And then they came back, they just came back home, they said there is no job. There is job, but you don't have the skill where there is a job. So that mismatch is the area we need to look at. And even our curriculum, if I tell you that more than 30 years ago, it's the same curriculum that we have been using the same university. Nobody thinks about it that is this still relevant to this to economic reality of now. So that's where there's that mismatch. You have people that went to university and 24% of them are not employed. And it's not supposed to be. You don't have that in any other country of the world. So there must be that match between our curriculum and the demand in the market. There must be a match between the curriculum and the employment requirements. There must be a match between the curriculum and the particular economic activities. Because as the economy grows, there are some other demand that will be going along with the development of the economy. So we have to go with that development. So if Nigeria now will leave extraction industry now, after extraction industry, we are refining our oil. We need people to work in the refinery. We need the engineer in the refinery. We need people in that sector. So as we are growing, we have to make sure that we grow our educational system, go with our economy, it go with economic reality, and then the issue of job unemployment will no longer be a challenge.
okay, thank you. I want to dwell back with the aspiration one, which we say is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. And we talk of that we aspire for African people to have a high standard of living, quality of life, sound health, and well being. as well as I take the other one, the good quality life, which is anchored on good education of citizen of the continent, of course. When you look at this aspiration, it is so coined, shaped, and parceled for Africans by Africans themselves. But when we look at what is happening on the ground with education, of course, which is very, very touched in most African countries, where for years now, a number of years, some schools or some areas actually don't have school, or school is not very regular. I begin to ask myself if when the bodies that be, when they look at this aspiration and you look at what is actually happening on the ground, what are those steps that are being taken to make sure that this education, which is going to lead us to a good life of Africans, of course, whether it is actually going to be acquired or achieved by 2063, given that most schools are not going on. If at all they are going, they are not very regular. Are we sure this aspiration will be attained by 2063, given what we have on the ground in most African countries?
Now, the reality is that the aspirations, they are very good, as I've said last week, but it's just 10% of the whole story. We still need 90% of hard work to get this thing done. As I've said, that it's not only that we aspire, we have to perspire, we have to inspire ourselves to make sure that this thing is done. And one of the things we have to do is that we have to take this aspiration one by one. Like we are talking about education now. What are we going to do concerning education to get this thing, the type of Africa we want? Then we go to the health, we go to the trade, we go to the commerce. We still have a lot of work to do. This aspiration is just 10%, and 10% is not a success mark. So we still have a lot of things to do. What we can do, as we are discussing now, is to make sure that we take some of this sector one by one. That for us to achieve aspiration that Africa we want, this is what we need to do concerning education. Like for example, we still have about 31 million of our children out of school. Children that are supposed to be in school. So how do we get them to school? So that's why the issue of accessibility is very important. Now, some of us, like me, I enjoyed free education from primary school to PhD level. That's no longer available. My primary school up to PhD, I didn't pay school fees. So that enabled me to be able to get the education I want. So that enabled me to now be able to participate. That's enabled me. If I'm not educated in my village now, I will not be where I am today. And so that is why we have to now take our sector one by one. Number one, we look at issue of accessibility. People in rural area, are they going to school? How do we get school to them? Now, after we ensure the accessibility, what is the quality of education going on? We have a lot of, even education alone, we have a lot of work to do. Because we have discovered that some countries that even say, okay, let there be free education. Now, the children get to school, there's no learning going on. The children go to school, they are sitting under the tree, even in Nigeria. The children get to school, even the university, some of them don't have where to sit down. And so we are talking about the quantity, that okay, we ensure enrollment. Number two, we talk about the quality. That is the infrastructures that support that. Then number three, we talk about the teachers that are doing the work themselves. There was a time teachers were not paid 6 months salary. So which education with that one, which knowledge with that one impact? Who will be happy to do that? You have not eaten for 6 months and then they want you to be teaching somebody. So after we are left with the teachers, we come to curriculum. I tell you, go and I'm trying to write a proposal on that. When last was our curriculum reviewed? It was very unfortunate to let us know that some of these curriculum were drawn by colonial masters. I am telling you, go and find out. Those curriculum they wrote for us when we were still under them. That's the curriculum we are still operating at this century. Can't we do something about that? Don't we have people that study curriculum development? Don't we know the economic reality? Can't we write something that will relate to that? So that's why we are saying we have a lot of work to do. And The way for us to give it back is to, now this thing we are doing now, what we do is that the conclusion of this meeting, we table it. It can just be one page. Then we go to earth, we do that. We go to trade, we go to commerce. We have a lot of work to do. So be as it, aspiration is very good, which is just 10%. We have 90% of work to do, and all of us have to get involved. And this thing, what we are doing now may be very little, but I think it's the best way to do. Now, looking at education alone, look at what I told you we have to do: accessibility, quantity of the education, quality. After that, infrastructural development. After that, the teacher themselves. Are the teacher motivated to work? Do they have incentive? Is there anything we are doing for them? And then we go to curriculum. Is the curriculum match? When last did we update our curriculum? Who wrote those curriculum for us? So then the teacher themselves, well, there was a report I was reading that's only
Thank you very
14%.
much, Prof.
Okay.
That will be
we,
another debate for another
it's okay.
day.
Uh,
A
yeah.
very old something. About 10 minutes to go. You
Yeah.
have so much to give, and you say that you went through education to share your knowledge and to enlighten us, educate us on what you have acquired throughout these years, which we must say that we are very happy. You talk of the curriculum that I said we won't get into that because it's a debate, a whole debate on its own, which has actually to be revived so that we can match them country, match our education with what we need, what skills do we need, which are those industries that we have available in our country, so that the skills should be able to be acquired and students should be able to get the skills I didn't want to get too much into that issue of scholarship because we discovered that most African countries offer very few scholarships, and it's difficult for somebody who has attained a certain level of education in Africa to tell you that he or she did not go out of the country to further education. And I think that that is a failure on our part to show that we do not have some of these institutions that are specialized to give us the required skills at higher level of education, which should be the reason why most people go out to further education. And like I was saying in the background, that the late president of Tanzania, when I listened to some information about him, he went entirely in school in Tanzania, and that was a plus. And I think that if our educational system is developed, if the curriculum is looked into and well shaped, so that we begin to follow these aspirations and acquire them right here in Africa without going out, I think we are going to get the best of us and equally have education that is oriented towards the realities that we have on the ground. Because you see, people get it is difficult for some people to adapt themselves with the skills they have acquired elsewhere to the realities that are on the ground. You may be trained on very high, sophisticated machines, and when you come back now to the country, you don't have the same machines which are doing the same job here, and you find people having it difficult to actually get into the market, which they are actually trained because there is no correlation or link with what they studied and what they are having on the ground. And thank you, Prof. I think we'll be getting a whole topic again on this issue of trying to make our curricula to match what we have on the ground. You talked of mismatch, people learning things that are not necessary. You see somebody get right up to PhD, learning something that he or she does not even know in which field he or she can fit to work or to acquire those skills. And Prof, we are going towards the end of our program, just 6 minutes to go. We don't want to always ask what the government can do for us. How do you think each and every one of us, Prof, can actually contribute inclusive growth through skill acquisition?
The first thing is to say that, because somebody is asking that, is it the government that have to do this, or is it non-governmental organization? I think all of us have something to do concerning this area, including the parents. We have to do something, including those of us that have graduated out of university, and then we can go back to our school, do something for them. We can participate, we can have a project in that school, we can gather ourselves together. We call it Old Student Association. The Old Student Association, there was a time we were building, I think, classroom for my own school. So that can contribute a lot. And then in a little way, we can, everybody must be ready to do one thing or the other. And then the another thing we need to emphasize, which the government is beginning to realize now, is that it's not only just to be educated. What about the skills? Do we have the skills? So that's where they are introducing entrepreneurship. I don't know how many African countries are doing that. So there's that entrepreneurship aspect of education that has been lacking over the years, and we need to think about that. And then another thing we can do, even if you don't have money, is to organize a kind of discussion with these students. We can go as students, old students, we can organize a kind of career choice for them, talking to them that these are the area that is needed. Even if the government cannot do it, the old student association can have a meeting, that we want to have a seminar, we want to have a conference, educating them that this is what is selling now, this is what you can study now. If you study this, I assure you, then you can you can get a job. We organize a kind of career counseling. We organize a kind of encouragement to them, tell them that they can make it. The only thing is that they should put on their effort and tailor their studies along this line. I think that vocational skill, we can educate them about that. And then I think that everything with that, things will be better. Those that cannot go to university, they can do some other things with their skills, and with that skills, they'll be able to participate actively in economic activities. So, vocational skill is also very important in even developed country here. You don't necessarily have to go to university. You can go and learn trade. You can go and learn skill. You can go and learn things. And when you look at their salary, I look at salary of people that went to university and people that do hospital, people that did vocational skill. You discover that the difference is not much. So, meaning that what they value is what you can do with your hands. Even if you say you went to school in this place, and before they employ you, they will ask you, what can you do with your hands? It's not only the certificate they are interested in what we can do with our hands. So we need to uh, learn how to use our knowledge, use our hands, use our skill to make sure that we do something that is relevant and important to the economy. I think with that, we'll be able to do a lot of things, and then we'll be able to help our country, we'll be able to help our Africa. And I still need to say that there are some countries that are doing well in one area or the other. We can learn from each other. I told you of Ghana, I told you of South Africa, then other country can learn from those other countries, and then we make progress at that point in time. But we need to know that all of us are stakeholders in this Africa we want. We, as we are discussing now, we will summarize our findings by the end of the year. We'll put it in a kind of a leaflet, and then we can distribute to the relevant people that for education, this is what we need to do. For health, this is what we need to do. For trade, we are even talking about this, what we need to do. For human capital development, this is what we need to do. And then we'll circulate it to the relevant authority. I think with that, we'll be making our own little contributions. And not only that, the African Union, the government, they will know that, okay, if you want to do this, this is what we need to do. Not just to state the agenda, but to make sure that things are done in a proper and appropriate way. And if you do that, I know that we are going to get to where our own desire to have a prosperous and inclusive and sustainable growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for concluding. I had some challenges. Thank all our viewers and hope that we'll be together again next Monday for another interesting topic. Goodbye for now.
Bye.